Patience.
I have learned that the most important thing I've learned about teaching maker activities is that you really need to think about people's motivation. So you have to think about why someone cares about what you're doing. And even if you're excited about it, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily excited about it. So you have to make a bridge between what you are excited about and what they are already excited about and figure out how to make that connection. That's super important.
Be patient. Read everything you can and document the crap out of everything. Because you never know where you're going to be with your project in a little while. And if you would have documented that spot, a couple steps ago, it would be very helpful if you have to undo things, redo things. Or I did something before, it kind of worked, but now I saw it, so it just gives you the ability to look back and see how you did something before. And that's something I struggle with. I'm a photographer too, and I should be really good at documenting my stuff, but I'm just so in the moment doing whatever I'm doing. I almost want to wear my GoPro around just as I'm doing stuff.
Patience.
Several things. Like, first is that it's not really the most talented or smartest people that get ahead. It's the people who really will stay there even though they don't know what's going on, and they try to figure out and they want to figure it out even though they don't know anything, because as long as you want stuff, like things, I think if people search for it hard enough, they eventually find it. And I've also found that a really good scientists, the ones that are out there, have some sort of art background, and the artists that are really up there don't really do well without science or math or some sort of that.
That's a difficult one, because the assortment of crafts all have different important things. I don't really know how to answer that. I guess it's just that there's no real one thing. Everything's interconnected, so it's like a stack of dominoes. If you pull out one skill, then a lot of what I do would tumble down. So I don't know if there's any one important thing, except that you should always be wary of the most unreplaceable resource you have, and that is time. You can buy anything else. You can't buy more time.
I think the main thing I've learned is to get confident with a design. To get to the point where I think it's good enough that I can buy the parts. Because that's the main stumbling block. If things are cheap enough, you just build it and rebuild it, redesign it. But that's just not viable. You have to have confidence in your designs, and that takes a lot of knowledge, takes a lot of experience, and kind of I guess the idea is grow slowly, build it, and then later build it bigger.
Sourcing parts is the hardest part. For me, as a professional maker, I have to be able to get all the parts and have them there, so when the order's placed, they're in the box same day. Having even one part not be around grinds the entire process to a halt. So by all means, logistics and supply chain management are surprisingly difficult. Developing one of something, scrounging, dumpster diving, all that is great. But if you intend to make more of them, you can't go that route. And you will inevitably come across the problem of how do you make 50 of something? How do you make 100? And worse, how do you keep straight who got what version of a product? Because if you're improving it as people are buying it, you need to go back and be able to say, oh, you bought this model, and we have a known problem with that was fixed 2 versions later. That kind of thing you cannot do if you don't have proper data management. It's the business of making is an entire lifetime unto itself.
I would say that for me that I have to really enjoy doing what I'm doing. So just be doing something that you love to do.
Be patient, because it's not always easy, and sometimes you feel like you want to rush things, but if you rush, then you don't do it right and you're not satisfied by the result. So yeah, don't rushing and go follow the steps.
Persist, despite how high the odds seem to be stacked against you. Just keep going at it. Don't throw the towel in too soon.
Well, first, having a set business plan and a production name and pretty much getting everything put together and then promoting it to investors and other people that would like to help put the project together, and other artists as well.
I've always known this. Everything I know now is insignificant compared to what I don't know. And to make the assumption making that assumption that I know everything and just pushing forward with that idea is wrong. Spending as much time as I can researching on better ways, better methods, better tools, in itself usually pays off better than any other thing I've ever done.
Patience. I think patience. I'm naturally a very impatient person, and I've burned, melted, destroyed projects by moving too fast, and I think stepping away sometimes and getting some perspective on what you're working on, I think that's pretty critical.
I'd say endurance, because there's been a lot of times where I've tried something and I've worked so hard on making it to this one specific thing in this one specific way, and it doesn't come out like that. And so what I've learned is I have to just accept it, or what I can do is I can accept these problems and learn how I can actually embrace it and create something brand new that I haven't, that maybe I didn't think about when I was first going into it. So just learning that, not every single project is going to come out exactly how you planned, but that isn't necessarily a problem.
The most important thing I've learned, just keep doing it. And you know what? If it looks like we should stop, don't. Keep doing it. Keep doing what you love doing.
Oh, just to be open to new ideas, and that your taste is likely to change very quickly when you first start. I went and bought fabric at the first sewing show I went to. I bought a bunch of, they're called fat quarters, pieces of fabric, and some of them I've never used. My taste changed before I ever got to sew those. It just galloped. I learned so much, and so keep an open mind and be open. You can learn everywhere, from the internet, from the books, from quilting guilds, and just keep an open mind and don't be afraid to try.
I don't know. I think for me, I did garment sewing before I started doing quilting, but I think the biggest thing is that people are gonna like it and people are gonna not like what you're doing, and to just let that go. Basically, my very first quilt I made when I was about 9 or 10, because I was really into the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, and my grandma said, "That's not a real quilt," and it totally broke my heart. And it took me almost 10 years before I even would think about making a quilt again. And then I found out later it was a technique, it just wasn't the one she thought of. So it's there's different ways. People are gonna hate it. Some of the traditional quilters can't stand us. They're so adamant that we're ruining quilting. But there's also other traditional quilters who think that we're awesome. So just let it slide off your back and find the people that do like you. Nice. And like what you're doing.
How to communicate what I do with people. I'm quite a shy person, and doing this takes a lot of explaining and a lot of telling people what it is that I'm doing. It's not as easy as, knitting. Everyone knows what that is. So I had to kind of, come out of my shell and communicate and talk to people more.
It's like you have to play by its rules, really. If you go against the grain, basically, it just won't work. It just doesn't happen that way.
No, everything's step by step. Cool. So there's no one specific thing. It's all just just pebbled stones on a large pathway traveling through. So there's lots of little things, but nothing specifically that stands out.
I guess for me, it would be, if you're building anything really large, it's to create like a mini mock-up of it. Because what you think looks in your head, what you think will look good in your head when you actually build it, sometimes it doesn't really translate. So doing like a small-scale mock-up is always a really good idea for anything really big.
Know your customers, because they determine what your product will be like and how successful it will be.
What I've learned, I think, just be open for everything. If you see cement in Home Depot, don't think it's not a material for jewelry. It is actually. You can make beautiful cabochon stones and put to your pieces. So basically, don't look at the jewelry and think what is shiny and made sell for jewelry. No, just look at every element you can find and try to incorporate into your pieces.
Is that I don't know everything, and that the people that come to me know what they want. And I just have to find a way to get inside of their head and get out what their vision is, rather than listen to their communication. To find their vision and be able to create that vision. So when I give it to them, when they come and see it, their jaw drops. It's like, this is exactly what I was looking for, or even better, this is better than I was hoping.
Being able to network with the people around me so that we can all support each other.
We also know phones are different. From an iPhone to a Samsung, they definitely have different requirements when they're figuring out they can charge, or if it's just a data connection.
If you approach everything like it's the best box of Legos in the world, you can create really great stuff.
I guess the most important thing I've learned is how many people are really excited about learning to do more things with their hands. It's something we've kind of gotten away from culturally, but there's like a real almost void that's waiting to be filled. And I think that's why so many people are excited to come out to maker fairs, because there's all these things that we've become accustomed to that we don't know where they come from anymore. And so there's real curiosity there.
Well, talk to people. Everyone has a little bit to share, and you learn from everybody.
Oh man, to have fun and relax into it, knowing that not everything's going to be perfect, and that some of the blemishes that I see are not the same things that people who are purchasing it are seeing, and so just to be easy on myself. I've learned that stone requires two things. It's a very challenging material, so it requires a lot of energy and a lot of focus. So yes, you have to learn patience, but you also have to know your skills and abilities to see how far you can push the material before it breaks.
In terms of actually making glass work, I think the most important thing is to slow down and remember what I already know. Sometimes I find myself rushing to make a piece, like I'm excited to make it, I've been thinking about it a lot and I just want to get it done. And sometimes sort of the more you play with a piece that's in progress, the more time there is to make mistakes on it. But you really do just sort of need to slow down and remember what you're doing and what you're going to do next, and just really focus on getting the process right instead of getting it fast.
Leave time to refine. Because I don't know how many times I've made it, thought it was done, and then afterwards been like, oh, there's a few quirks. Especially in art school, when you have 5 projects due at the same time, you can't just leave them all to the last minute. You have to leave at least a couple days to work out the fine details of, oh, I've used it for 20 minutes, now it's broken. So that definitely, I've learned that.
Don't give up. Try, keep things small. When you're building things, try to keep things small, because although we like to build very large things, they are quite expensive. So if you fail when you're building something this big, it's not as expensive.
Be careful in your choice of suppliers, because the quality of the parts and the quality of the service in them doing the production runs of PC boards will vary sometimes from batch to batch. Never let yourself rely just on one PC board vendor, unless you have money to burn and go with one of the really big board houses in the States.
Stay calm, chill, let the mistakes happen, learn from them, and just keep going.
Most important thing I've learned over the years from building is that you can build just about anything yourself.
I don't know, like I say, trusting other people to help you out sometimes and stuff like this. Cool. It's an imperfect world. I mean, if you want perfect art, go somewhere else, I guess.
I would say probably to creatively learn from your mistakes, and to I think that's the main one, because you're constantly like making errors here and there, but the biggest error that anybody makes is not analyzing and correcting their errors.
The most important thing I've learned is that it's very important to play. Play is the core of creativity. That's how you can encourage yourself to come up with ideas that will never ever work, and then from those find ideas that will work. But you have to go through the process of play.
Yeah.
Or else you'll never get there.